Hello, welcome back. It is time to talk more about ROOTCatZ's 4-hatch before pool style. In part 1, what we looked at is the sort of conditions that we would need to be able to begin doing this, which would obviously be that he is unable to attack us. He's going Nexus first, the greedy play most Protosses are doing. He's delaying his forge. He's even going Nexus Gate sometimes. Ah! So we go for this 4-hatch option. We primarily looked at the basics of it, talked a little bit about the timings, talked about the reads we would do, and the things that we had available. Something that ROOTCatZ was messaging me in the break, and something that we briefly mentioned, is that the real strength of this is the huge amount of larvae you have when compared to a 3-hatch build. Given the looks of it, you're not getting a wildly better economy. This isn't a way to get suddenly 20 to 30 more drones. You can easily check that for yourself by watching Cat stream, seeing him do this, and seeing what his drone counts are, seeing the drone counts in the replays that we looked at before. We're not hitting absurd numbers a lot more quickly. But what we are doing is we're getting so much more larvae that we can do things like that 9-minute timing attack with a lot of lings that ordinarily wouldn't even be possible. You can still produce drones out of 3 hatches, just like you would in a Stefano-style opening, and you can even produce extra neat stuff out of the larva of the 4th hatch. You can just build an extra 20 to 40 lings over the course of several injects and blast his face apart. In this game, we're going to look at a little bit more aggressive of an opening from a player by the name of Brown Ra. There's Null Ra, White Ra, and now Brown Ra. And of course, CatZ acknowledges the clear, the obvious, that that name is totally sick. Speeding it up! Again, the Cannon Rush opening, how you would defend in that circumstance, I would love to show you. However, I ran out of time to properly prepare this daily because the beta servers were down. So I just sort of sat and twiddled my thumbs and played a lot of text twist. I will once again emphasize in a theoretical sense how we would deal with a Cannon Rusha. Here is the expected answer that we're going to try to send a drone out, do all that sort of good intuitive stuffs. This is a little bit presumptuous by CatZ. It's fine if you do this play so long as you are aware that you're saying, my expectation is that he's early expanding. I think this is becoming less true in Heart of the Swarm. There's a lot more gateway first openings, and I would not like to open for 3-hatch before pool against a gateway firster. But that's fine, because, hey, we make it right into here. We see that he wants to be going for an expansion. It's generally okay to let this go down, to know that his economy is for certain messed with. But CatZ just kind of keeps his drones poking out, has these hatcheries continuing to build, does the ring around a rosy play, and very importantly checks here, and we'll see, uh-oh, it looks like there's nothing being constructed at the front. This Overlord will sort of replace this job and be able to check that, but we see attempts to Cannon Rush going on before we've even built this extra hatch. This probe's attempt to Cannon Rush is quite late. It was late because CatZ did a good job of doing spotting early on. And then just kills this off with a single blow and returns right on back to things as normal. And the hatchery going down. I still am of the opinion that throwing down an extra drone to hold watchtowers to do just a little bit of poking is not going to be a tremendous loss, but will be a tremendous gain. Either way, CatZ sees that the opponent is going for this double gateway opening, has tried to attempt to do some Cannon Rush to mess with us, is now going to attempt to do some gatewayness. And do note that this gateway did not finish by 4:30, so it's kind of a late gateway. For every attempt to poke at the front, the later and later all the tech of the Protoss player becomes. So I like this sort of intuitive, really fast double gate with fast +1 attack. And KatZ responds in a very appropriate fashion. Getting these Zerglings up. You know what you would normally say is so strong about an attack such as this one? This 2-gate thing? You'd normally say, okay, behind this attack, I'm going for 2 Nexuses worth of probes, chronoing away, and doing this will force him to build larva to spend larva on Zerglings. But we're not worried about being low on larva in this opening from KatZ. We're actually not worried at all about it. So it will have somewhat of a negligible impact on KatZ. And we see that KatZ has actually not even begun building his queens yet, just straight up building the roaches. And this is partially okay that we're not getting a lot of queens this early on, because our opponent must be behind on his tech. He's going for 2 gateways. This is a very easy pullback. We're going to spend a lot of money on seemingly extraneous Zerglings. He's super cost efficient because he has +1 zealots. But that's fine, we have more larvae than we know what to do with anyways. An easy, straightforward surround. And so long as this sort of cannon rushingness is easily dealt with, we're going to look to be in a strong and standard situation. If he does try to aggressively cannon rush, you can cancel hatches. You can respond by taking other, more aggressive expansions. And you will be in a strong, yet non-standard situation. Actually, I want to rewind a little bit just to talk about that sort of cannon rushing logic. We saw KatZ in his previous game build a hatch in the equivalent of what would be about here, to be able to have the creep spread from this 3rd join along there, and then have the creep spread from the 4th to the natural expand along there. However, note that this player tried to do a cannon rush. Because he tried to do this, what does that mean? Instantly we know there is no threat of a very aggressive early push hitting us in a way that would necessitate creep joining these 2 places. Right? In other words, in that first game we saw, the queens popped out just in time to be able to defend a normal early aggression. With this thing going down, we're not that worried about it. In other words, failed cannon rush, this is one of the big motivations for why we can plant this hatch here. So again, pretend that this cannon rush went sensationally. Went just amazingly well, drones were pulled, all that stuff. This hatch would be cancelled, a pool would be started already, this would be going down, and we'd have this expansion that would effectively be totally fine. Yeah. Oh, God, I'm so proud. KatZ said I'm 100% on the money on that one. Woo! Yeah! I was on the money and KatZ said so. Ah, I feel warm and fuzzy. Yeah! That feels cool! Yes! I genuinely am happy about that. Because I've certainly said things, I've gone down a chain of logic, and I'm like, well, I'm agreeing with myself at every step. I'm not seeing any problems. And the player's like, no. Nope. Very wrong. Incredibly mistaken. You are stupid, day 9. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm stupid, but I'm very articulate. And that thing that I proposed has a lot of good points to it. Fortunately, StarCraft is not something where it's like ultra black and white. There's wiggle room. Woo! So we have wound up in a situation that is unusual looking. If you have been up against this sort of 2 gateway stuff, or done it a lot, this is actually a very normal spot to be in. To have some sort of counter aggression pop up. Now, as fun as this is to see, and as much as everyone's watching, and I even see people in the chat saying, "Oh, this is dumb. Protoss could have held that off and could have blocked it in." I totally agree with you. The Protoss certainly could have held this off. It doesn't do any sort of critical, life-ending damage. The important stuff is what's going on back here. All this goody goodness is going on with these 4 hatches going down. We don't have a queen here, no problem. We'll just morph it up into a layer. This certainly could have gone down significantly earlier, but, you know, no biggie. That would be, again, for like a future game adjustment. While this push is going on, construct layer tech, and then construct this good old goody goodness spawning pool. And this just becomes another fairly straightforward, clear situation. You can Overlord Suicide in, you can Overseer Suicide in, or you can even do things now with this crazy economy, like go blindly for Hydralisks. Whatever he throws at you, it will be fairly low gateway, fairly high tech, so it will be something more along the lines of Stargates and or Robotech plays, so Hydralisks are an excellent blind choice in this circumstance. We have seen air, so we're not super blind. So we can do little pooshes like this. Pushy, pushy, poosh. And I'm going to speed this up to get this silly game out of the way, this total one-sided Hulk smashing. So that way we can check out ourselves the goofiest, doofiest game of total awesomeness of all time. Here it is, rolling right on up. Oh yeah, he's crushing them. Walking on up. It's a Colossus. Let's target fire the Colossus with our Hydralisk. Did you know Hydras counter Colossus? KatZ knows that, and that's why he used the fact to his advantage. Oh yes, rolling on in, crushing faces, dealing the spines. He's a spine dealer. Can you imagine trying to buy a watch from some shady-looking Hydralisk in an alley? Or in an alley, he's like, want to buy a watch, and he opens it up and just spines, and they shoot you in the face, and then he takes your watch. Let's go into a different game, but now I'm going to close this Heart of the Swarm replay. Hopefully it doesn't crash. And... Alright, how's my sound now? We sounding good? I hope it's not crackling now, too, man. That would be hilarious. That is the most painful of painful things. Closing that replay. My system's just like, no, you can't close the replay, that would watch it again! I'm now going to show you the third and final game that we'll be looking through. It's a long game, it's an epic game, it's a game that will give you a boner. I just wanted to say that word. And it deals with the other end of the extreme. What happens when our opponent sees us being greedy and responds in kind by being greedy? Alright. Good. Great. Back online, baby! Back online. Okay, so this is ROOTCatZ against Infinity 7's Tubby the Fat. Yeah, let's go to the KatZ cam. God, I love reading the chat. Dat neck. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Alright, so we see Tubby annoyingly tries to block us. No, very bad, Tubby, very bad. Drone fight, drone fight. And this is Wings of Liberty-esque, straight up. Ah, yeah, easy cannon rush time. This is the standard response. We've seen this 1,000,001 different ways. But KatZ sends out an early scouting drone and sees, the greedy, oh so greediness that I have come to know and love. Could have gotten himself up an expansion, and does. Drone continues to check stuff out, gets himself hurted. These drones that are doing their best to make sure that there's no cannoning, they turn into our additional hatcheries. We can just plant a hatchery right there. Great. This is because there was no attempted cannon rush by Tubby. There was no wasted time by Tubby. Therefore, this hatch is needed to have the creep spread adjoin between them. Alright, so things seem to be going well in Cat's Town. Oh yes, up in Cat's Town. Now, of course, Tubby does the usual thing. A Protoss player always wants to do a second check to ensure that there is, in fact, a third hatch going down, that it's not some sort of all-in. And then Tubby sees this. What's this? What's this? 4 hatches in the air. What's this? There's hatches everywhere. I'm not going to keep going. He just sees the hatches, alright? Sick, says ROOTCatZ. Well, Tubby is going to do a reasonable choice and just expand right here. I don't know, seems early. Totally acceptable assessment. Drones still doing their best to poke out. Check out in about 4 hatch before pool seems early. He's talking about getting the 5-minute third. Ha ha ha. That's right. Tubby the Fat is getting this very early Nexus down here. And Tubby the Fat is even doing these really clever little wall-off things where he's actually getting a nice little zone control thing set up here for this back one. This won't really change what CatZ is doing in terms of his he's going to build drones, he's going to build queens, he's going to get his double gases around the time his pool wraps up. But if we go to the CatZ cam, he sees this, and interestingly, as a Zerg player, you can literally just expand again. There's nothing that a player can do to prevent you from doing this. This is what's really cool about this 4-hatch opening. You can deal with all these varying Protoss things in this way, by being a little bit bold in ways that the typical style of play would not permit you to. Now, straight up, why are we going for this +1 Zergling and +1 Zergling Carapace? Because we are high on larva. We already have all our 4 hatches up, so there's no reason not to devote to Zerglings, because we can make use of Zerglings. By 9 minutes, we're already at 80 drones. Cool.
Our forces are under attack.
There's actually also not that many units for Protoss. He has a Zealot, a Stalker, and lots of sentries. And if he had anything else, we would kill off the attack and then kill this immediately. We would slaughter that, actually, if he didn't build sentries right now. Kind of needs them to be able to defend this. And Tubby responds appropriately by taking himself a 4th base. Everyone's just expanding. They have an expander's agenda. Hip hip hazooha. Now, I am strongly of the opinion that if we go Infestation Pit and then straight into Swarm Host, we win immediately. I am quite strong. I'm quite strongly of this opinion. Swarm hosts obviously work better in larger numbers. Like 4 swarm hosts kind of sucks, but 12 swarm hosts is just panic-inducing for the Protoss. It's bad. But in a more general sense, when someone is going for lots of bases very quickly, how do they defend? I'm just going to say that one more time. If an opponent is going for lots of bases very quickly, in general, how do they have to defend? They have this huge variety of different stuff that they can deal with, or that they have to deal with. Mutalisks, Zergling all in, Baneling all in, Roach all in. They have to deal with Hydralisk getting thrown at them. They have to deal with Nidus Network. They have to deal with Infestors coming over and lobbing things in there. They don't. If you expand a lot, you have no control over your opponent's composition, in other words. So, this is why you'll see players be forced to do things like blindly go for Blink, because they need to against Mutalisks. They'll blindly get a few Immortals, because they need to against Roaches. They'll straight up get a lot of Sentries, because the core thing that a lot of expansions really fast type of builds have in common is that you're kind of low on units if you end up doing that. If you were high on units, then you wouldn't be able to expand. so many places because you've been spending the money on units. So you end up with very cutesy defenses that do a lot of delay tactics, rely a lot on positioning. Why is the Swarm Host an amazing choice in this circumstance? Because it is a direct assault at the front that cannot be exploited by really anything. The only real tool a Protoss would be able to perform profitably against a Swarm Host army would be multiple ranged Colossus. So I think that if you just go straight for the Swarm Host and begin blasting down the front door, you'll very quickly break a huge entrance open. I actually think that perhaps even going for a Hydralisk and Swarm Host combo here would be probably the strongest. I say that with all the logic I've provided without any testing, so there does need to be the testing component to it. However, an Infestation Pit, we can actually just do the math right here. An Infestation Pit is 50 seconds, and we actually had that layer done a little earlier, did we not? We had it done, yeah, a smidge earlier. This means that we can get the Infestation Pit done by 11 minutes, and then by 12 minutes already have the Swarm Host done and heading to his face. By 12 minutes, we can do that. Because Swarm Hosts take 40 seconds to build. And keep in mind, Infestors, you always have to wait to get that Pathogen Gland upgrade done. So they take quite a while. But Swarm Hosts, you can just build straight away while the Enduring Locust upgrade is going down. So we're going to watch a little bit more of this totally comically sweet game as time goes on. I would like you to once again imagine that in about 30 seconds our opponent would have a bunch of Swarm Hosts barreling down his front. Acute defense, enough to hold off most all-ins, not enough to hold off a muscular Swarm Host. Ermacurd. But I think Tubby's doing the smart thing, going back to the beta StarCraft 1 style. Colossus Void Ray, baby. Doing all the Nidus Worming. All the Nidus Worming. Trying to stay aggressive, getting the hive up. Totally cool. And get this. This is where I stop. This is where I stop. This is seriously where I hold on. This is where I stop. We're going to go to a break. Come back for part 3. And you'll note that when we come back for part 3, there's no more four-hatchedness to analyze about this game. We have already gone through the opening stage and seen what a nice response KatZ has created by taking this fast 4th base, by going for a fast layer. And we can then say, great, I have learned what I need to learn from this game. So normally in part 3 I would be looking at some other games and that sort of thing, but in part 3 we're going to finish this game because it's about 40 minutes long and hilarious. Stay tuned! Stay tuned! We'll be back in a sec.